Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hey there, this is Kelly, and I am so glad that you are here today. Gosh, it sure does mean a lot for me that you press play on this episode, and I really hope that there are some amazing takeaways for you. I have Jana Roemer on today to talk all about Yoga Nidra. This is really cool, and I love that this is coming right on the heels of Mary Shor's interview last week on the science of personal development, because this is like the other end of the spectrum. We were all about hard facts and science last week. This week is really about faith and trust and doing something that is maybe really out of your comfort zone. And I love that we can really come to all of that, all of the science, all of the woo on In Her Voice and bring you something really special that's going to challenge you. So, and it did me, I have to say. Before we get to the interview, I want to take a minute to remind you that right now applications are open for my Mastermind group. We are starting June 11th, and I'm so excited to welcome in women, and maybe that woman is you, who have an idea that is of service to others that has been burning within them for a while. And it can be a new idea too, but I feel like all of us have those, right? That they're in there, they're inside of us. And every day that goes by that we don't take action on that feels heavy. And so if you are ready to lighten that load and to birth your idea into the world, into reality, if you are ready to not wait another day to take inspired action on this mastermind group is for you. I made it especially for you. And if you're not familiar with a mastermind group, it's super cool. It's when a group of people come together, and everyone in the group might have a different idea, but each person brings something with them that they contribute, their expertise, their encouragement, their ideas. And when a group like that comes together with a similar goal, which is taking their own action, but also supporting everyone else in the group, you would not believe the stuff that gets done, the stuff that happens, how encouraged you are. If you're really ready to take the action now, like if you want to show up in September and look back at the summer and say, this was the best summer of my life because I finally honored the ideas that are inside of me, this is for you. So it's application only. This group is not for everyone, but if you think it's for you, I really encourage you to go fill out the application. Then we'll sit down and talk to see if it's for you. And we will get going starting June 11th. So if you want to learn more about how to apply and about the details of the group, go check out the link, kellycovert.com/mastermind, all one word. And the live link is right in your podcast app. And you can fill out the application and see all of the details, the times and the dates and all of that good stuff. So I cannot wait. This is really a culmination of many years of my own burning ideas and my own work towards believing in what I was put here to do on this earth. So I would love for you to join me in that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my guest today, Jana Roemer. With roots in Canada, after 20 years of travel and study with respected teachers and a decade in the role of teacher, Jana Roemer lives in Venice, California, where she leads classes and new moon circles at Love Yoga Space. She has run over a dozen 200-hour yoga teacher trainings, a 300-hour yoga teacher training, multiple Yoga Nidra trainings, and retreats all over the globe. You can find her on Insight Timer, by the way. Just side note, my favorite meditation app, and it's free. And if you don't have it, you should go get it. Elephant Journal, the Revealing the Diamond podcast, and she has been written up on Well and Good about Yoga Nidra, new moon circles, and breath to relieve stress. Of course, we're going to link to Jana's website, and so you can go there to check out all of her current trainings, her retreats, her public classes, and her very cool monthly online Astro Nidras, which we're going to be talking about in the interview. So go take a peek at her website while you listen to Jana's interview. You are going to love it. Jana Roemer, I am so excited to welcome you to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. And we're already like best friends in the time that we talked before we started interviewing, because, oh my gosh, what you have to share today, I think is going to be so powerful. But where I want to start is not where we will end, of course. But I want to start with asking you this. What is a midwife of awakening? Because that is what you call yourself. And I think that's the perfect place to start.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. So for years, I guess I fell under the title teacher. And my experience of being a teacher, it just never felt like the right title ever. And what I saw within the teaching realm was a power differential. So there was the teacher and then there was a student, and the perception of the teacher ends up being on a pedestal because the way that life gets presented in a teacher role versus a student role. But the way that I teach is from a really raw, vulnerable place. And I don't pretend to be better or greater. I just keep it really real, because to me, that's the only way we can actually get stuff done, is if we're going to talk about the things that need to be talked about. And when I gave birth to my son, I did a home birth with a midwife. And the whole philosophy around midwifery, giving birth, just like spoke to my soul. And my midwife was there, and she was a guide in my process, but I didn't give birth to my son and to myself, or sorry, she didn't give birth to myself and my son. I gave birth to my son. And in the process of doing that, I gave birth to myself all over again. And that experience just felt so much more true for what I'm doing in the classroom. Is I'm guiding people, I'm helping people to understand what it is to awaken to your truest, most divine self, but I'm not doing it for them, and I see the difference. The people that come and expect me to do it for them, they don't really get there. The people that come and they own it and they do it themselves, they get there, Mm-hmm. And so it just felt like a more appropriate title.
Yeah, I love that. And I love these words you just said. I gave birth to myself all over again. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And two things. Have you done that only once since then? And I should say not or, and what does that mean? What do you mean exactly? And do you think that happens only once?
I think that there have been so many rebirths throughout the course of my life that it is a natural part of the life cycle at this point. Any rite of passage is a rebirth. To become a mother, though, it was so major, because it was such a dramatic shift in identity in such a short period of time, that then following giving birth, the identity has to change again and again mm-hmm. and again and again. And so I think giving birth it's such a dramatic event. It's so profound.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That it really has become such a pillar of understanding the teachings of what birth is on all different planes of my existence. So if I look back to, moving out of my parents' home for the first time, now I can look back and say, well, that was a rebirth. But at the time, I was like this feisty 17-year-old that was like, I can do this. It didn't feel, I wouldn't have put that language around it.
Yeah.
But since then, I've run 4 teacher trainings and like 200-hour yoga teacher trainings, and every single one, or I guess 2 while I was pregnant and 2 since I've been pregnant or since I gave birth. But every single one is a rebirth. And then every Nidra training that I've done is a rebirth, and the 300 hours is a rebirth. And so this process that I go through, and then my own process of absorbing, eating, digesting, releasing the teachings as they come, they all, we can call it go through the digestive system, but ultimately it's a rebirth that happens with each and every one of them. And like my marriage is going through a rebirth right now, we were one thing and now we're something else. And it's so beautiful.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit, because I think this is so interesting, because I think that a lot of times when we have the opportunity for a transformation, like you're saying, or a rebirth, we resist it. We make it mean something wrong or something bad or something that we should avoid. And how do you lean in to that?
Well, here, coming from the woman that took 25 and a half hours to birth my child. So I know a little bit about resistance, like even in that one, which is just a metaphor of my own life. We do resist because we don't want to feel the pain, and if I can take it back to that birth, I knew that it was going to hurt to bring my son into this world. And I didn't jump into it. And the way that it was for me, it was slow, definitely not easy, but it gave me a chance to warm up to the idea of like, okay, here, I'm going to do it now. And I think that's kind of the way I live my life. But once I jumped in, I was there, like once I decided I was going, it was 2.5 hours. But up until that point, I didn't decide. And I think we have to look at our own transformation with a willingness to feel whatever is coming up in the moment that it's coming up. Because if we really look at healing, the mechanisms of feeling, whether it's a physical sensation or an emotional release, it doesn't play by any rules other than to allow us to move through what it is that we're moving through, that we need to move through. And so the unpredictability of all of that is actually the magic, like the willingness to go into the mystery and say, I'm going to feel whatever it is that needs to be felt. And then emotions, for example, they're just cleansing mechanisms so that you can come through to something, more blissful.
Yeah, I really love that. Now, the main vehicle that you use in your midwifery, I'll call it, in supporting people to move through their own healing and to process through these emotions is yoga, particularly Yoga Nidra. So why don't you first tell us what that is? Because not everyone might know, and then talk about how it works. Because I feel that when we approach, when we, a lot of us were like, I'm going to heal myself. Step A, like step 1, do X, Y, Z. And I think that the way that Yoga Nidra works and how you use it is so different from that. And I just would love to hear your explanation of it.
Yeah. So in the past, every healing modality that I undertook was confrontational. And now I'm actually going to contradict myself in a way. And there's almost like not a violent aspect to it, but like really painful or I don't know. Yoga Nidra is completely different. It is the practice of surrender. So you do it laying down in Shavasana. And what you're learning to do when you first begin the practice is to allow your body to fall asleep, which at the same time your brain, the dominant brainwave pattern slows down. So you're in alpha and then theta brainwave. And typically when someone's in theta, they're dreaming or sleeping. But you learn how to stay awake in that altered state. And once you're awake in that altered state, then you can conjure forth different emotions or different scenarios and allow yourself to feel it from a surrendered perspective instead of from an egoic perspective. When we're in beta, which is eyes open, operating through life, the cocktail of chemicals that our endocrine system releases is completely different than the cocktail of chemicals that our endocrine system will release in alpha or theta. And the main difference is that when you're in alpha or theta, your body doesn't release the stress hormone. And so once you're able to surf into alpha and theta, the body's sleeping, the mind stays awake, and then the guide takes you into, what we do with emotions is you do pairs of opposites. And so let's say one of my favorite ones to work with people is resentment and forgiveness. And we ask you to feel resentment. And so you're in a calm state of mind. There's no stress. You're safe. There's no stressful hormones being released into the body. And then you allow yourself to feel resentment. And when you feel resentment, then your endocrine system starts to release a hormone that meets resentment, but it's missing the stress hormone. And then once you have an experience with that, you let it go, and then you allow yourself to feel forgiveness. And there's an endocrine response to forgiveness. And then because now what we're doing, I've made up a word, it's called endocrinology. So we're creating sequence of endocrine system releases, or sequence of, I call it the cocktail of chemicals, that then in your waking life, next time you feel resentment, there's a trigger in your endocrine system. Instead of releasing it with stress, resentment gets released with calm. And then you create a pattern within your endocrine system to release forgiveness chemicals afterwards. So then in your waking life, you see the event, the husband didn't take out the garbage again, whatever it is.
That never happens at my house.
It's so stereotypical. It's like a joke. It's whatever. Anyway, whatever it is, the event that causes resentment happens, but now you've triggered your system to release calming hormones with the resentment. And then within a breath or two, you're releasing forgiveness hormones. And the hormonal system works way quicker than the intellect. So by creating these patterns through this surrendered state, then in your waking life, all of a sudden your endocrine system is taking over. And before you have a chance to think about it and be resentful and let your ego get in the way and create a story, you're already getting fed a cocktail of chemicals that says, just forgive him, just forgive him, just forgive him, just forgive him.
Yeah, that's powerful.
That's so powerful.
Well, and you know, what I think is really cool is this idea of coupling this amazing work, which seems like it almost works on a subconscious level.
Absolutely.
That's my understanding when you talk about that. Like, so you're in sort of this, like a trance, maybe almost like a trance-like state where your body's asleep, but your mind is awake, and you are being guided. And then I think that if you couple that with sort of the notion that we can consciously change our neural pathways through our own languaging, through recognizing our own stories and our own reactions, that would be super powerful. And this is so cool because this is coming out right after my interview last week with Mary Shores, and that is what we talked about. We talked about changing those neural pathways. So if you guys haven't listened to that episode, I really encourage you to go back and listen, because I think the coupling of these two are amazing. But I want to get back into what it feels like when you're in Yoga Nidra, because I've actually done it in a studio a couple of times, and I don't think that I have done it enough to get to the place of sort of that my mind is awake and my body is asleep place. Because my experience was I didn't really feel like I fell asleep, but I felt as though time went by faster than I experienced it. And so like I said, I don't think I actually got quite to that place. And so how do you know when you're there, when you're primed, so to speak?
Yeah. So because we're working in the subconscious realm, it doesn't actually matter if you completely fall asleep or if you stay awake, the practice will still have an effect on you. And this is really interesting because falling asleep to the TV, we're getting programmed.
Which is terrifying.
It is. It really is. I really hope to inspire more people to shut the TV off, especially as you're falling asleep. But so we're getting programmed. And so whether you experience it or not, let's say somebody actually falls into a sleep state, my words or the guide's words will influence the dream state that you go into. And then dream state still is having an effect on your whole subconscious. And in time, you'll know, honest to goodness, I slept through Yoga Nidras for a good 5 years before I woke up inside of it. And then even after I found, I call it surfing the brainwaves, even once I found that, I remember a very significant moment. I was actually guiding a training. I trained people how to do it. And it was a smaller group and we were doing a practicum and one of the students was guiding a Nidra. And for whatever reason, her voice, the cue, the timing, where I was, all of a sudden, it was like a wave of each emotion came in. And it was almost like I was on like a psychedelic journey, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it hit me from a completely different angle. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is ceremony. And that's after about 12 years of practice. And so if you think of Yoga Nidra like meditation, over time with meditation, the practice changes. If, let's say, somebody wanted to learn how to do in yoga, let's say a handstand or a back bend, some lucky little buggers get to do it right away. But most people, it takes a bit of time and practice and effort and with good guidance to get there. And so it's a practice that you just have to keep going back and back and back. And I can't tell you the experience because you'll just know the experience.
Cool. Yeah.
Because it's alive.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I loved it. The 2 times that I've done it, I really, really loved it. And it was sort of like a couple of things. This was my experience, some thoughts from my experience the first time I did it. Wow, that was really cool. Mm-hmm. I feel so chilled out, so relaxed. I could just float through the rest of my day. Mm-hmm. And also, why bother?
Yes.
Honestly, I know. Okay, but wait a minute. I just spent an hour laying on the floor.
Yes, that is so common. I agree.
And I think, with the thing that my mind keeps coming back to, that my heart keeps coming back to, that I think we should really dig into, is that you said literally, Yoga Nidra is the practice of surrender.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what it is. So rarely do we want to lay it down. Do we want to just say, it's almost, I think we equate surrender to the idea of I give up. And so often in our lives, we were taught, well, we don't give up. We keep pushing, we push through. And it kind of is counterintuitive, I think, for a lot of people to lay it down, to surrender, to quote unquote, give up. So can you talk a little bit about how someone could work through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to give you some little scientific knowledge.
Oh, awesome. I love to geek out on sciencey stuff.
Okay, great. So 2 of my favorite teachers are Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Bruce Lipton. And these guys are really breaking ground with some incredible information all the time. But one of the things that they teach is that the conscious, I can't remember who actually published it first, but the conscious mind is able to pick up 40 environmental stimuli per second. 40. That's it. But that's in 1 second. So that's actually fairly substantial. Your subconscious mind, in that exact same second, picks up 20 million environmental stimuli.
How many was that? You went out a little bit.
20 million.
20 million.
20 million. So if you take that piece of information in, what you're doing when you're surrendering or when you lay down for Yoga Nidra is you're actually learning how to gain access to all of that additional information, or to go in and mine information from the storage house that you're collecting all the time. And this to me is the body of intuition that who isn't trying to increase their intuition right now? We all want our intuition. Well,
if you're not, you should be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Maybe I live in a bubble.
Well, in California, there might be more people who want to be in touch with their intuition than on the East Coast.
So when we lay down, we're actually unlocking a gate of the entire universe being stored within you. And that's not something that we are typically having a conversation about or attempting to do. Although, there's 1,000 memes that say, listen to your inner voice, follow your inner guidance. And you're doing it, and there are ways, but it hasn't been a primary focus of how do we then do that. And when you spend time laying down in the practice of Yoga Nidra, you're not doing nothing, actually. You're waking up to an infinite knowing. And that's something, the practice originally thousands of years ago was reserved only for the highest leaders, teachers, seekers. It wasn't something that was given to the mainstream because they considered it a fast track to awakening.
Well, it's so interesting that you use those words fast track, because what I was thinking of while you said it, it's almost like a shortcut.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to figure it out yourself. Like, you just have to let go and let your subconscious do the work for you. And so often we are fighting against that. Like our conscious and our subconscious are not going in the same direction oftentimes. And I think that that's where it becomes hard, even when you say, listen to your inner voice. I mean, I do that a lot through journaling. I do it a lot through meditation, but it can still be challenging. And so this, I just feel like, is almost like you're saying here, just all you have to do is open this door and you will have entrance into that space. And it's really becomes about trust, like just trusting the practice of that.
Yeah, and I think the structure, I actually study the Bihar lineage of Yoga Nidra, which uses the koshas. So from yoga philosophy, the koshas are the 5 layers of the body: the food body, so our physical body, our energetic body, so that would include breath, Chinese meridian lines, chakras, nadis, any energetic field, and then the mental emotional body, and then the intuitive creative body, and then the 5th body is the bliss body. And the thing about the first 3, the food body is where we carry physical pain. The energetic body, there'll be knots or blockages or stagnancies. I actually really love working in the energy body in this practice, though. And then the emotional body, think of how much emotional pain people go through. And as we go through each layer, we're transcending them. So you go deep into the food body, and then once you feel your whole entire food body, then we let it dissolve and you start to feel the energetic body. And this is so fun to do, because most people, when they say, can you feel anything energetically? They're like, no. And then you put them into Yoga Nidra, and if they don't fall asleep in the physical body, we call it the rotation of consciousness through the body, then they start to feel their breath, and they start to feel the pulsation of the breath that goes beyond the lungs. Excuse me. And once they feel beyond the physical body into that pulsation of life force, then we start to enter the mystic. And once you have access to the mystic, the ego is no longer there. And when you call forth an emotion, and you see the emotion just as an experience of an emotion, without a story attached to it, without the pain attached to it, you just see the emotion as an emotion. And you can meet it with the opposite emotion. So sorrow and joy, resentment and forgiveness, pain and pleasure. And then, so then we're just transcending them. So then once we get the pain out of the way, then what's after that? Okay, now we've got intuition. We've got creativity. We've got visualization. And then once you go through that and you release that even, then what? Like, we've released the body, we've released the energetics, we've released the emotions and the intellect, we release even the intuition. And once beyond that is just pure consciousness. And so that's where you meet yourself in the practice, because everything else is just a layer of illusion or distraction away from that pure consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's bliss.
I love that. I love that. You know, it reminds me, I'm reading right now, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach.
The best.
So good. It's so, actually, I'm actually listening to it, and the woman who reads it has a beautiful voice. So it's almost like meditation just to listen to it. But I feel like it's the same idea of, she talks about the art of the pause, where you stop in a moment of anger or anxiety or whatever, and you just acknowledge it. And in the acknowledgement, you're able to release. And again, it's just like I keep coming back to this idea that like doing this practice of Yoga Nidra is just going to help us be able to do that even better when we're in that conscious state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you create the neural pathway of letting go all the time. And I'm sure you hear this from the people you work with. They're like, I just don't know how to let go.
Totally.
Like the most common thing. I don't know how to let go. And like they're angry. Well, I don't know how to forgive that person. But they hurt me. And so, it's not natural.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to stop and go do some Yoga Nidra right now. I'm like super excited about it. Well, and so that makes me want to ask you this. If one was wanting to get started in a practice of this, and I don't live in Venice, California, where you are, like, what is the easiest way for me to dive into this? I mean, do I need to go to a studio? Do I need to find, does it matter who is teaching it? Because it seems to me like that would matter, because the words that they are using, or sort of the practice that they would have each time, would really impact what's happening.
Yeah, I think it is really important to practice Yoga Nidra with somebody who has been properly trained. There's a perception out there that Yoga Nidra is just deep relaxation, but because we're going in and reprogramming the subconscious mind, which is, what's driving your vehicle, it would be really wise to seek somebody that actually has training. For example, let's just say they did the pair of opposites with emotion, and they did forgiveness and then resentment. And I hear this all the time in different recordings. You're creating an endocrinology of forgiveness, but now I'm going to get mad again.
Yeah.
Right? And so those little subtleties actually make a fairly substantial impact on how the practice translates out into your life. And so the first thing I would do is I would look for somebody who's been properly trained. Mm-hmm. And then you can do it at studios. I love doing it in group. I find the bigger group, the more likely, like the deeper the experience. They've done those meditation studies where every additional person that comes to sit in a group meditation amplifies the effect of the meditation.
Yeah, the energy increases exponentially. Yeah.
So group classes is I really recommend them. But at the same time, for consistency of practice, there are online recordings. I have one's on my website, but also there's an app called Insight Timer, and the woman who completely revolutionized my experience with Yoga Nidra is on there as well. Her name's Tanis Fishman. I'm on there. And Jennifer Percy is another person on there who's fantastic. And then I release them. I'm an astrologer as well. And astrology is working with the collective consciousness. And so every astrological season, so when the sun moves into, right now it's in Aries. So, and the archetype of Aries is about connecting with who you are as an individual. And so I theme a Yoga Nidra practice that comes out with each astrological season. And actually this one for Aries season is one of my favorite ones I've ever put out.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Where can these are on your website?
They are, and I can give you a link too if you like.
Yeah, you can give that to me after, and we will put it in the podcast app that you guys are listening to and in the show notes. So you can just click right now while you listen over to Jana's website and see what looks good for you. So Great. This month actually, you know what? This comes out. When is this coming out? This is coming out end of May. So it may be different by then, but I'm sure it will be exactly
Gemini
what you need.
season by then. Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, Gemini season is meeting your higher and lower self. And how do you create a balance between the higher and lower self and the inner and outer world? So that'll be fun too. And they do come out with the seasons, but at the same time, these are life lessons. It's always a healing thing. So you can go back and do any one that you want, that the theme seems like it would be appropriate for you.
Yeah. And you know what I think is super cool? So I use Insight Timer all the time. That's my go-to meditation app. And for those of you who are looking to start a meditation practice or a Yoga Nidra practice, we live in a time that is so amazing because Insight Timer app is free.
It's like
you just download it to your phone. It's on Android and iPhone, iOS, and you don't have to pay anything because I think sometimes people feel that they will look for things to be in the way of starting something like this. And I'm here to say, you guys, there is nothing standing in your way of downloading the app. You can find Jana right on there. You can search or any of these other teachers that she shared, Tanis Fishman and Jennifer Percy, and just try it. Mm-hmm. And the amazing thing about just trying is it's free. It's going to help you, even if you think it doesn't help you, which that's the best kind, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. And you may find that it's exactly what you need.
Well, and Yoga Nidra, you guys, you're doing it laying down. So honest to goodness, 1 hour in Yoga Nidra is like getting 4 hours of sleep. So if I'm going to bed and I only know I've got 6 hours till my alarm is going to go off, I lay down, I put my earphones in, I do a Yoga Nidra. Now all of a sudden I've got 9 hours of sleep instead of 6 because that 1 hour becomes that much more bountiful for my rest and relaxation.
So here's a practical question. Does it matter what time of day I do it? Is it better if I do it at night or can I do it at any time?
I think that whenever you can do it is the best time to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. When my son was little, I did it, with his second nap. The first nap, I would organize and clean and get everything get my life in order. And his second nap, I would, lay down with him and do my Yoga Nidra. And I have one that I ended up putting on YouTube that's for motherhood specifically. That's 27 minutes, I think. Not even half an hour.
Awesome. Well, that was going to be my next question. Do we have to do it for an hour?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. 25 minutes, I would say, would be a minimum to get a full spectrum practice, because to get through the different layers of the body. And again, I'm speaking to the Bihar style. I know Rod Stryker is another major teacher of Yoga Nidra. I'm actually going to go study his style in May. So he has a different approach to it.
So be heart style. That's so anyone that's trained in that would be a good place to start.
It's Bihar, Bihar. It's a yoga university in India. It's, with every yoga school, there's eventually some controversy. So of course there was some controversy not that long ago with the Bihar school, but the technique and the practice itself is absolutely brilliant, and it's changing lives.
Perfect. Well, Oh my gosh, Jana, I feel like I have so many questions. I feel like I could just keep going, but I know that we need to wrap things up. Why don't you let people know where they can connect with you? You have a great Instagram profile. Let us know all of the places that you are.
Yeah. So Instagram is where I'm most active. It's just my name, Jana _Roemer. My website, I keep it up to date, although my Instagram isn't connected to it, but everything else, I have a blog for all the moons and all my things. And it's just my name, Jana Roemer. I'm on Insight Timers, we already mentioned. I've got 3 Yoga Nidras and a special project that's probably going to be out by the time this gets published, but I can't speak about it, but know that it's coming. And YouTube, there's some practices on there as well. So, but to me, all the online stuff is really wonderful because it gives us an opportunity to connect in ways that we wouldn't otherwise. But I also do in-person intensives. I'm going to Norway in June. I'm going to be in Squamish, which is by Whistler up in Canada, in the fall. I'm doing, and those are both for, it's a week Yoga Nidra intensive. Like we do and understand the practice fully, and at the end of it, you can guide it. And then also in November, my co-facilitator and I are going to Mexico, and we're running a week-long retreat at one of the most beautiful retreat centers. It's called Shinalani, and I'll be doing Yoga Nidra, there'll be yoga, and then she also does like lucid dream work. So she'll send you to bed with a message for yourself and a way to go to bed with intention so that you can wake up inside of your actual dreams. So it's going to be a week of cleaning out and restoring and reprogramming your subconscious in paradise, basically. So those are all amazing. Those are my favorite ways to connect, because there's nothing like in-person connection. That's it to me.
And then you mentioned you have your astrological yoga nidras that you produce by the season. And so we'll put a link to all of that, because I really want to empower you guys to take advantage of Jana's wisdom and her expertise in this, and let her become a midwife for your own awakening, which is so powerful. So Jana, before we end, I have my one question I ask all of my guests, and that is, in your life right now, what is your inner voice, your intuition saying to you, guiding you towards?
Oh, I could cry. Thank you for asking that question. We need to take care of each other. Yes. We need to take care of each other. We live in this system that's not taking care of each other, and we need to step outside of the system, and we need to reach out, and we need to love each other and take care of each other in every way that we can. And in order to do that, you got to get right with yourself first. And so figure out how to fall in love with yourself so that you can serve your community. I know that's what I'm building towards. So, thank you.
Well, thank you.
To have that reaction.
No, I'm all about crying. It happens all the time in her voice. And I just want to say to you, your voice is powerful. And thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for your courageous spirit in diving deep into something that some people might think is a little too woo for them, because I think it's so powerful. And I think that, gosh, you guys, if you're looking for a shortcut, if you're looking for the fast track, here it is. And I know I'm going to be taking advantage of your Yoga Nidra practices that you have on Insight Timer, and I'm going to check out the ones you have on your website, especially because I am a Gemini. So I think that would be like doubly powerful for me to use that during my birth month. So I just am super excited. And Janna, I have a very, very strong feeling that this will not be the last time that we connect. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure coming to talk with you today.
I just love her. She's like, she makes me feel, just talking with her, more chilled out, like just more relaxed. And I have to let you know that since I recorded this interview, I have tried to do a few of Janna's Yoga Nidra sessions on Insight Timer, and they are I was going to say fantastic and fabulous all at once. I just couldn't decide because they're both. They're really, really great. And I definitely encourage you to go check out her website because she has a lot of really cool stuff that you can try there. And this is one of those kind of things. It's almost like energy work. It might not feel like it's doing anything, but trust me that it is. It totally is. So just a reminder that the Mastermind is still open for application. I'm still accepting applications from women who have an idea to serve, and who are ready to activate that, to bring it into this world, to birth it into this world at this time. If this is something that you have been wanting to do for a long time, you feel the pull and you just haven't been able to activate it. You haven't been able to pull it out of you yet. And you know what? No judgment there, because I 100% get it. I get it. Real life is hard, you guys. That's why we need support. And that's what this group is about. So do yourself a favor. Don't let another day go by with you feeling like you haven't done it again. You know what I mean? Like, what is it going to feel like to you in 3 months when you can look back and you can say, I did it. I did this for me. I did it for me because I knew it was inside of me and I knew I had the power to do it. I believe in you, you guys. This mastermind is for you if you're feeling that call. So go check it out, kellycover.com/mastermind. The live link is in your podcast app. Fill in an application. Let's talk. Let's see if it's right for you. As always, I want you to remember that you, yes, you are a powerful woman. Did you know that? You might know it on some days, and there might be other days where you forget it. And you can trust me to always remind you that I believe in you. I believe that you are here for a reason, and that you matter, and that we need you doing your work in the world. We need you to listen to that small, still voice inside of you and do what it asks of you. You are worthy.